We're going to talk about how to break into startups, especially as an ex-investment banker, but just in general. The reason why I'm qualified to talk about this is because I've worked at two startups, including the one that I am working at right now. And I was a banker before, and I exited to something that wasn't private equity. So here we go. I'm going to talk about what I did first, and then talk to you guys about what I've seen other people do. I think breaking into startups. I keep saying breaking up. Breaking into startups kind of like a mythified how do you do this because there's really no set path. I'll break down everything that I've heard / what I've done. For me specifically, I was all over the place in terms of recruitment. I don't know what I wanted to do after banking, and a company reached out to me directly. They were hiring like crazy. They were scaling up. So I can't really say that I went through this recruitment process because a company recruited me directly, DM me through LinkedIn. I did a first screen with a recruiter and went through the process and got the job. There was nothing that I did in terms of networking. They reached out to me directly, probably found me off a investment banking analyst title, and other people at the company were also ex-investment bankers, ex-consultants, so that made sense. So that's one big way that companies do it, especially bigger companies that are trying to get bankers who are probably jaded with their jobs or know that they're hard workers, but they don't necessarily want to stay in finance anymore. And I think the startup sphere, the tech boom is definitely still afloat. So easy way is if they reach out to you directly. Obviously, that doesn't happen to all of us. The next traditional way is LinkedIn. LinkedIn also has a lot of job postings by startups, especially bigger ones, ones you have heard before, ones that can scale and are hiring a lot. They happen to post job postings for strategy and operations, analysts and associates. Those are all jobs that, if you look at the job description, they ask for 1 to 2 years of banking or consulting experience, because they want someone that's hardworking, has the business experience, and probably highly qualified, smart people that want to work hard, but also want to, jump into the tech space or find or do something very innovative. Very traditional ways, mainly through LinkedIn. You can also look at websites like AngelList. They're a bit more geared towards software engineers, but sometimes there's ops roles. So that's another big chain pipeline to get into it. I would say the next tier of things that if you're really interested in startups, you're probably following startups. If you're looking at like TechCrunch or following a certain industry like Web3, crypto, or restaurant industries, for example, just to name the things that I've been in, then you probably know certain companies and their websites are definitely having hiring opportunities. Speaking of that, sometimes the companies themselves reach out to you directly via email. Ever since I've entered the startup space and my LinkedIn now has startup stuff in it and people find that out through the algorithm or whatnot, people email directly, especially smaller companies that might not have the pool on LinkedIn that people might not be applying to because they recognize that the website or the company doesn't look that legit. They sometimes reach out to you directly and say, hey, I'm so-and-so from X company. Sometimes the founder emails you and says, we're looking for experienced associates or experienced workers to join our company and do XYZ vision. So that's another big pipeline, companies reaching out to you directly. I would say if you're really following an industry, let's say you're an NFT fanatic, you might have a Twitter account, you might start talking about NFTs, and you might have people reach out to you directly, literally sending you DMs and saying, are you interested? It sounds like you know this space very well. And I'm not speaking from personal experience, but I've seen people get hired that way, especially in the Web3 scene. But just in general, it's the world of one-man branding and marketing. If you have something to speak for yourself, if you have a blog, if you have a newsletter, if you have a YouTube channel, and people find you interesting and it seems like you know what you're talking about, people have found jobs that way as well. And I also think the reverse works. I've seen people knock on people's doors or send cold emails or send cold DMs and saying, blah, 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 I have this experience. I'm actually really fascinated in this and I want XYZ job. I actually talked to someone recently who wasn't necessarily in a space, but got interested in the space, started networking directly on Twitter and started posting about his knowledge in the space, and that got him the job, but he was directly cold emailing and that got him the job. So until now, I think I've covered LinkedIn, direct LinkedIn DM messages, or you're applying to jobs that are listed. AngelList, kind of similar. You can also go directly to people, or they might go directly to you if you're posting about relevant stuff, if you're known for relevant stuff. And just another reminder that it is definitely the age of one-man branding right now. You just got to market yourself and make yourself known. You can know everything in the world, but if you keep it to yourself, no one's going to know you know that. And it's quite important for you to get hired, to let people know what you know so that they hire you. Which kind of brings me to my next point, where I think there's a lot of hidden gems out there. You might be a hidden gem yourself, where you're particularly knowledgeable in one thing, especially if you're in investment banking. Maybe you really dug deep into the space that you're covering. Maybe you're covering third-party logistics, 3PL, which is something that I covered when I was in banking, or education services is something that you're passionate about, and you seem to have an eye for those things, and you have good ideas, and you can work hard. A lot of the startup space has nothing to do with technical skill sets or your ability to do something, or really any relevant experience. You might be more knowledgeable than people that have experience in that space. I think to be a founder, you probably want experience because you've faced problems that you want to solve before and you want to be entrepreneurial. But if you want to get hired into an already existing startup and you like that idea of contributing to something, being interested in something sometimes is almost enough because you probably have a different career you're jumping off of. If you're coming from a consulting banking background, you already have that first filter that a lot of companies are looking for, which is hardworking, grit, probably a good school. You've proven yourself professionally. And most importantly, what startups are looking for is your ability to pursue and carry things out on your own. A lot of startups are low on headcount. They don't necessarily have mentorship programs. There's no promotional track happening. You're building things alongside others, much like yourself in your shoes. Sometimes your leader is not much older than you, and they really need you to do things on your own. And I think that's the crux of what they're looking for in hiring. And a lot of that shows by the initiatives that you take outside of work and the interest that you take. And that's a big appeal point. I think, of course, the most traditional sense, as I said before, is to apply to jobs and go through the recruiting process. But I've seen a lot of startup hiring happen basically on demand or impromptu based on people's interests outside of work, and that leading to opportunities elsewhere. So I think it's really important to, once again, market yourself, especially for startup roles. There's no formula for success here. I think other jobs, because they've been around for so long and they have formulas and people have done it over and over again, there's a lot of clear paths for becoming a doctor, an engineer, or even a investment banker. But jumping into startup spaces is just always difficult because a lot of it comes down to who you know and what you know and those things aligning. And I think that sphere has definitely matured. So there's a lot of job postings, there are systems in place where you get recruited. But a lot of times new grads and stuff want that foundational basis for their career. So they're going for a bit more stability in the beginning. No one really jumps out of undergrad and heads into a startup unless they're truly entrepreneurial or product focused. I think a lot of people nowadays are considering the startup path almost as a replacement for exit opportunities, post-banking and consulting. And a lot of that comes from just active searching or them directly reaching out to you based on that. I will say, I think the startup job space has become a bit easier to enter in the sense that there's so much venture capital money being thrown out that there's a startup left and right. I'm sure you watching this video know someone yourself that has gotten funding for some crazy cool idea, like selling pictures online through the blockchain, and they are all hiring. So there's a lot of jobs out there, I think, and they're always down for, once again, not to repeat myself, high grit, high performers, which a lot of them come from banking consulting, and a lot of them jaded from those roles, and they want to be at these opportunities. If you're in the process right now and it seems like you keep hitting walls, feel free to leave a question below. Hopefully I can answer it. A lot of it comes down to networking, I think. At the end of the day, you might get introduced to someone that knows someone that is starting the startup, or perhaps someone at your banking firm or consulting firm has already started a startup and they open doors for you. I would also take a look at your college, your alumni network, and see if they started anything. Because at the end of the day, as I noticed before, unless you're a software engineer, a lot of startups are looking just for people that can grind it out and do sometimes the dirty work, sometimes even dirtier work than banking, but someone who can take initiative. And a lot of that comes from a inner trust and understanding of someone. And the best way to prove that is having a similar career background or having a similar school background, which that's the best network to tap into. So if you're breaking into a startup and you really like to summarize at the end of the day, you can look on LinkedIn. People might reach out to you directly. People might email you. You can reach out to them directly. Market yourself so that you're making known that you're interested in something. And the most important reason for that is startups, a lot of times it's not just a job. You might get a lower pay and promise of future equity. So you really want to be doing something that you're relatively interested in and you believe in, so that the day-to-day doesn't feel like it's going to waste or just going to benefit the person that has started the business. So you really want to find the thing that you actually believe in and perhaps are knowledgeable about. I hope that this video helped if you are in banking or consulting and looking for a switch into the startup space. If you're having not a career at the moment, or you're an undergrad and you want to jump into the startup space, I think it's always a good starting point. I hope I helped out. Again, if you have questions, please ask in the comments below or book time with me through my one-on-one. But as always, I love talking about this stuff. So more videos, more transparent videos. I think I'm more open about these things now as before, just because my job allows me to be more open. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Let's go.